Hey folks, this is Tim from the Jefferson County Jural Assembly.org. And today I want to talk about a booklet called The Enemy is in the Building. And the enemy that I'm talking about is the British equity courts. The British equity courts are in our courthouses. So the enemy is in the building. The enemy, the British equity courts are in fact operated. British Equity Courts, Bar Association, and British Accreditation Registry. And folks, they're British, and they have been for 150 years. And all bar attorneys are called Esquire. Esquire is a name given to them by the British Crown. So if you think that I'm kidding, I'm not kidding. The part that I'm going to read is fairly simple. We must establish our jural assemblies in the United States. We must establish our common law grand juries, and we do that through jural assemblies. This is not a jural society. This is a jural assembly. If you look that up, you'll find jural assembly is a sovereign assembly of people who desire to put back together their common law courts. So the Jefferson County, Pennsylvania Jural Assembly is created to reestablish the American common law courts in this country. For 150 years, we the people have been trampled upon by a military dictatorship at martial law and maritime courts, admiralty courts, British equity courts, all operated in the wrong jurisdiction of the sea by for-profit profiteers, pirates, basically, mostly foreign corporations pretending to be our de jure government. We have the British, we have the Federal Reserve, which is operated by the British, in case you didn't know that. We have the United Nations, and under the United Nations is the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, and then under the International Monetary Fund is a company, a corporation called the United States. So the United States is operated, there are two corporations, one is territorial, one is municipal. The territorial is run by British, the territorial is operated through the Federal Reserve, and the United Nations operates the municipal, which is actually a French corporation. So, moving on. For 150 years, this has been going on. What did I just say? Okay, well, since the Civil War, we have been lied to by the people who we have elected to represent us. The Civil War was not an actual war. It was an international mercenary conflict. It was never declared a war, and there was never a peace treaty. In fact, the people of the United States never went to war. It was the corporation called the United States of America that went to war under Abraham Lincoln, who was part of the Bar Association. Yeah. And under British control. So the government steals our patents, our inventions under the guise of national security. They've stolen our silver dollar and our gold. And this is all fraud. They have stolen our copyrights, trade names, trademarks, and our children. They have stolen our educational system and our financial system. So they only teach you what they need for you to know. Okay, they have replaced our sovereign dollar with a debt debt instrument called the Federal Reserve note. That's a fraud, and it's not constitutional. It is legal because it's inside of their corporation. but it is not constitutional. And that's how that works. So they create things inside their little bubble, and then they try to create us inside that bubble. But we're not inside that bubble. So at any rate, they've stolen our Supreme Court of Justice and replaced it with an administrative Supreme Court under the Congress and the President. They do this. These are all British courts of equity and admiralty courts in the wrong jurisdiction. The original jurisdiction Supreme Court is not now in session and has not been, particularly since March 1st, 1991, when they changed their oaths of office. They changed the oath from agreeing with the Constitution. Now they say under the Constitution, and there's nothing in the Constitution to be under. They must agree with it, and they don't. So all the courts are not constitutional. If you want a constitutional court, you have to create it yourself when you walk into that court as a sovereign man. You have to say, hey, I am a man at common law, at American common law. You're not at Dutch common law. You're not at English common law. You're at American common law. And so you have to establish your own court. And you can do that because you are sovereign. So they've stolen our land patents and replaced them with property taxes, which is not constitutional. The website, jeffersoncountyjuralassembly.org, is to be used to establish lines of communication between members in good standing and to establish the many steps needed to accomplish this goal of establishing our common law grand juries again. Now, grand jury is 25 people, petite grand jury is 14 people. So it is true that the American common law courts, when they are set up, all of the admiralty and maritime courts, the British equity courts, will all take a back seat. They can even be abolished in our local communities. And this is our goal. So this booklet, the one I'm reading from, called The Enemy is in the Building, at the website, jeffersoncountyjuralassembly.org. This booklet is created to bring light to an otherwise misunderstood darkness upon the people of Pennsylvania and the United States, and our beloved children and the Constitution. Many people may need to read this booklet several times, even 10 times. I know that I've been working with this kind of stuff for over 10 years personally, and I've been particularly concerned with sovereignty and land patents and things like that for the last 4 years since, well, at any rate, it's been at least 4 years, and it takes time to understand all these things, but they must be understood. So the Jefferson County Jural Assembly can really help you out. If you want to have your questions answered and find out different various things that I can help you with, I have lots of paperwork for you to take a look at, but I also need you to understand that there's paperwork you need to do. You need to take your deeds and put them on the land. And that way, these other jurisdictions cannot mess with you anymore. So it's very important that we establish our common law grand juries and that everything be set back in place the way they're supposed to be according to the common law and not according to admiralty law, not according to British equity law, not according to maritime courts. And so I appreciate you watching, and go and watch the rest of the videos. There's lots of stuff going to be put out there for you, and I hope you have a wonderful day.